We built the TJ Special. It's the return of the Ebonite Big Time. Hey team, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Buckosh, core design engineer for Brunswick Bowling, and today we're talking about the special edition version of the Ebonite Big Time, a ball that made TJ famous, or rather I should say he made famous by making numerous TV appearances nearly 2 decades ago with this ball. And when he's asked what his favorite ball is, his go-to is always the Big Time. He wanted it back in his hands, and we're happy to deliver. So here we have a big sanded symmetrical ball in the Ebonite lineup, something that Ebonite was missing. The Game Breaker 2 is a nice benchmark performer, but it really doesn't stand up to the really high volumes or for players that really need to get the ball started, and this one fills the gap beautifully. Now, this core technology isn't exactly new, but it's the first time we've seen it in this modern era, so I wanted to make sure I made a core video about it. So let's take a lap around this core and check out some of the highlights. And we're going to start right here at the top of the core with this dense flip puck that's at the top. This flip puck is designed to be relatively small relative to the Game Breaker puck with a higher density. This mass concentration helps in a number of ways. First of all, having this level of mass concentration away from the center of the core means that it really boosts the differential. You're going to get more differential out of this ball than a light drilled Game Breaker. But more than that, this puck, because it's so dense, it's also relatively small, which means that when you drill into it with a standard pin-up layout, you're missing most of the mass of that puck. Most standard layouts with pin-up drillings, the fingers aren't going to hit the puck, they're going to hit the compound core material next to the puck, which means that after drilling, most of this puck is going to remain intact for most standard pin-up layouts. So that's beneficial for retaining differential after drilling. Now you'll notice that this core body is kind of reminiscent of the Game Breaker series. The Game Breakers kind of evolved out of this core, but you'll notice a few differences. This is a much narrower core body, a much smaller volume overall. That allows the RG to be a little bit higher. It's a 2508 RG compared to the 248 RGs that you're found in the Game Breakers. That means it's a little later revving core, but more than that, this ball has notably more differential. This core is an 054 total differential, which is a very high flare potential, compared to the more modest 048 differential that you get out of the Game Breaker series. So this is certainly a step up in flare potential and motion shape, and that's due to the fact that this core body is a little smaller in volume, but also taller and narrower with the addition of these much wider caps on the top and the bottom of the core. That's elongating the core in the pin axis direction, making it relatively skinnier compared to its height, and that's adding to the differential. It's also got this little carved flat spot toward the bottom of the back of the core. That's also aiding in changing the shape profile of the core to get the differential that you expect out of it, and it also changes the mass location of the total inner body of the core. This one has dynamic core for harder hitting power, something that the original never had, and it's surrounded by a sanded HK22 base cover that has the 13.7 Game Breaker additive package in it. Now you'll recognize the Game Breaker additive package from almost all of the balls with the GB branding, but this one is the first to have a sanded HK version. Of course, Game Breaker 4 Hybrid had a hybrid version, I was trying to say a shiny version of the HK cover base, but it's kind of a rarity to see this in a sanded package, and especially as aggressively sanded as this one is at 500, 1500. So this one has got a lot of teeth. And if you remember, the original Big Time was actually a particle-loaded pearlized bowling ball, which made it very early and diggy, and we mimicked that here with just a light load of sparkle in the pearlized cover stock. That's going to give you a lot of dig in the mid lane, so even though it's branded as a sanded pearl, you're going to be surprised at how early and diggy and aggressive this cover stock is to pair with the high flaring, high differential core. So this one is definitely built to slow down in the mid lane and give you a lot of shape for a symmetrical ball. So who is going to use this ball, and when are you going to use this ball? Well, you can tell by the numbers and by the sanded cover stock that this one craves oil. You definitely want to throw this one through a good amount of head oil. If you're a lower rev player, you're going to love this ball to start out on house shots where the volume in the middle is really heavy, and you can kind of eke in a little further than you normally can with your smooth symmetrical bowling balls. If you're a handed player, you could benefit from this one on longer shots and sport shots that are flat, especially on the heavier side. I would gravitate toward heavy volumes and patterns that are longer than your typical house shot, your 42-foot patterns and longer. And you are gonna want maybe a little bit of tilt or rotation as a player to get this one down the lane and around the corner. If you're a low tilt or low rotation player, this ball can get a little bit forward for you, but on trickier conditions where you're trying to control the pocket, that might be just what the doctor ordered. If you're a high tilt or high rotation player, you might love this ball on a wide range of patterns because it is slowing down in the mid lane enough for you to control the back end motion, where sometimes you'll see balls that get down the lane a little easier with more back end motion get a little too over under, a little too skid flippy in the wet dry, and sometimes that back end motion is a little untamable. In this case, you'll see a nice mid lane read and a smooth digging back end motion. If you're a higher tilt player, a higher rotation player, if you're a higher speed player, or if you throw it like Tommy Jones, you're gonna love the Big Time Special Edition. It's available in pro shops worldwide right now. Make sure you stop in and get one. And while you're here, make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook pages, Bowling Buckosh. I try to make new videos anytime a new core release comes out from the brands of Brunswick. We're gonna talk next time about some of the cool releases that came out in December.